I was gonna say that what you were saying earlier really like hit me in a certain way of saying that the like a sovereign man is the most in touch with his emotions.
Yeah. I think when we think of sovereignty, right, it's a word that I'm kind of popularizing, which is so dope. Shout outs to you know yourselves. There are a lot of viewers that are growing tremendously in the background, and they leave the comments, and I really do appreciate those because it's the way I know the impact,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes there are going to be guys who just, and I get that because I'm one of those for different people.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just gonna get the impact in silence.
Yeah.
I'm gonna love you through it. All right. But nah, when it comes to sovereignty and emotions, those two things, I've had a lot of conversations where guys almost think those two things are the opposite.
Yeah.
Meaning, sovereignty means the ability to govern oneself, right? And then you have what's called self-sovereignty, right? Which is your ability to govern your thoughts and emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have sovereignty within, let's say, the society or the social circle where you can govern yourself.
Yeah.
Meaning there's no one dictating you and saying you got to do this, you got to do this. So that's sovereignty within the context of society. And then you have internal sovereignty, which is the governance of your thoughts and emotions.
Yeah.
And so if our actions are what dictate the bulk of our results in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I want to get in better shape, I got to do different things. I got to move my body and I got to eat less cake. If I want to make more money, I got to, work on developing a skill that benefits other people. And I got to do it for a lot of people or show a lot of people how to do the thing or make the product
Mm-hmm.
and sell it to people. And we trade that for money.
Right.
And then you get more money. Or if I want more, friends, right? I have to not spend 17 hours a day video gaming, at least if I want friends in real life.
Right.
And I might have to look up a local event and go out there and get uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
right? I might stand outside the first day and say, I'm committing to just being out here for an hour. If I can do that, it's success. Next weekend I go to one. If I can ask one person the time, it's a success. I had to do these things. I remember when I was learning how to cold approach strangers, I'd go on the street and it'd be a mission, right? I'd go out and I'm like, okay, got to ask a stranger for the time. And that's, the victory and slowly building up into that until you get to all the levels, beyond that where it's from asking, a stranger for a time to, whatever a person could imagine could happen with a stranger in the shortest time possible. So, but it started from asking for the time, right, and getting comfortable with that. So if actions are what change our lives fundamentally,
Mm-hmm.
then what changes our actions, right? Our actions, for the most part, are governed by our emotions. So it's important to realize, like, in all human behavior, the foundation of all our behaviors are based upon beliefs or assumptions. Basically, what we think is true about the world.
Mm-hmm.
You can think of a belief as how you see things, right? So if I believe the earth is flat, then I'm going to see things in a certain way, unless I change that belief. If I think the earth is a cube, it's going to change the way I see the world. So your beliefs are the most fundamental things because they govern what is real, right? It doesn't matter if the belief is not true. You'll feel that it's real. So that's the most fundamental things that govern our behavior. Then above that, we have our feelings. So our emotions, we should say. And your emotions, you can think of beliefs as ice, and emotions would be like water.
Mm-hmm.
So like a melted belief. It's like the middle point. And then you can think above emotions are thoughts. And then thoughts are like steam. So we have beliefs that are crystallized, ice. We have our emotions that govern our behavior, which is like water. They're always flowing, changing, ever changing. Yeah. And you have thought, which is also somewhat ever changing. It's dynamic. Beliefs are more static, right? And that's important to know, because if we want to change our behaviors, we got to change our beliefs. Yeah. Or more accurately, learn the truth. Right? You don't necessarily, truth doesn't require belief, but for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to use the word beliefs or assumptions, what I think is true. So if my belief dictates my behavior, then if I'm getting a certain result in life, if I'm, lacking in whatever, then there's an underlying thing I think is true about the world that isn't. And how I know it's true is because other people are getting the thing I want. Right? So if I'm 5'2", and I think because I'm 5'2", I can't get any girls, or I'll never get married, or I'll never have a family, then that has to be true for every 5'2" guy in existence. Right. If there's one 5'2" guy who can, that means it's not a law, it's a belief. Right? It's not a truth, it's a belief, it's a perspective. And so if you have the belief that I'm a 5'2" guy and I'll be alone forever as a result of that, then you're never going to take any effort, because you think it's an impossibility. We don't take action and put effort into things that are impossible. So until that person goes, what if that's not true? Even if it's a slight questioning, then at that point they can start going, what are the true possibilities? What if it is possible that I don't have to die alone because I'm short? What if I don't have to die alone because I'm a virgin? What if I don't have to die alone because I'm 40 and I've never been out the house? Like, whatever that thing is understanding that is a point of view on existence. And it's that particular person's point of view. But unless they have a lot of data, which we've talked about in previous podcasts, we can't assume that we know everything that's possible. And so we have to really question our beliefs oftentimes. Now, going back to beliefs and actions and how emotions and sovereignty relate, sovereignty we think of as, to govern myself, I need to chain down my emotions like the brutes they are and power through an action. Willpower is everything. Clarified will is everything. The masculine will, right? The will is masculine. Desire is feminine, right? So it's like, I have the desire and I have the will and I just execute. Emotions be damned. And so sovereignty can be perceived as emotional suppression. Right. That's how men have been conditioned to think about being sovereign. But what I want to talk about today is that the sovereign man is actually the most emotionally in tune man, right? To be sovereign doesn't mean to suppress, right? To be sovereign means the emotions are present. I observe them, I listen to them, I see what they're telling me, because your emotions are always telling you what your beliefs are. And so how it works is you have your beliefs produce emotional states. Your emotional state influence your thoughts. Sometimes thoughts can create beliefs. Those two kind of cycle each other. Thoughts and emotions. Your thoughts can influence your emotions can influence your thoughts. Those two are intertwined, the masculine and feminine. But your beliefs are more like the axis that's your emotions and your thoughts. So think of like a galaxy that spirals around. The beliefs we have produce a reality, a galaxy that worlds come from. So if I believe because I'm black, I am going to have a hard time in life, that belief is like the sun and all these planetary realities, all these feelings on Earth. Oh, well, if I get pulled over in traffic, that means I'm going to have a negative experience. All these worlds and realities are going to be being produced in your life as a result of that central belief of, because I'm black in America, I'm going to have a worse time in life. So that would be an example of a belief, a particular point of view. So now, if I have that belief and I have that point of view, when I get pulled over, a certain emotion is going to emerge. I'm going to feel fear. I'm going to feel anxiety. I'm going to feel defensive. I'm going to feel tense, because I have the belief that because I am black in America, for example, that this will most likely lead to a negative outcome. So I'm in defense mode, anticipation mode. And so then thoughts start getting produced because of the state of emotion I'm in. But if you take note, it all started from the belief, from the assumption of what reality is. And so from there, produces the emotion, produces the thought of, oh no, I might get shot, and those thoughts start to germinate. And so when the police officer, for example, pulls up to the window, this person, from their reality, might have had zero intentions to have any kind of altercation. But if I feel like that's who they are because of my belief system, this is going to be a negative experience just because of that, then I may project a reality on the person that doesn't exist, and it becomes more tense than it would have been had I assumed there was nothing to worry about. Right? And so it's very important, and I touched on a sensitiver subject, or more sensitive, because when I'm black, so I can talk about this. But also because I've been pulled over 5 times, 3 white guys, 3 white cops, and I think 2 black, and I've never gotten a ticket. Right, because I never had the assumption that a police was my enemy. So whenever I spoke to them, I perceived them as somebody's dad, somebody's brother, somebody's. So I didn't have any assumptions of something is going to go negatively. And I was wrong in every situation. I didn't try to sweet talk my way out of it. In fact, it was the opposite. I went, yeah, this is all my fault. I'm bad. Not I'm bad, meaning like it's my bad. And what are the next steps? He's like, hey man, don't worry about it. Because I don't have the assumption that things are going to go poorly. My emotional state is calmness and friendliness. No defense whatsoever. Which produces thoughts of, this guy's just out here doing his job. I'm in the wrong, I take accountability. Which produces actions of, hey bro, what's the next step? And they always go, that's all, man. And I've had situations, as you know, where I've gotten a ticket in the middle of the night around a hallway, not a hallway, like a cutoff in the neighborhood where it's just me. And the guy who was a white cop gave me the ticket, gave me the citation, saw, because I wasn't a citizen at the time, on my driver's license, that I wasn't a citizen. And that I had I was going to have to apply for the green card. And he's like, oh, I'll just have to give you a citation. I was like, okay, that's understandable. What else? I didn't know what a citation was. He's like, you've never gotten a citation? I'm like, nope. And he went back and unprinted the ticket. And was like, yeah, I don't want to have you have a citation because that may impact you getting the citizenship or something. Right? And I'm not saying that there aren't times where some other negative situation occurs, but we also have to acknowledge both sides, right? So if that experience could exist, that means that I, as a black man in America having a negative time, let's say with the police, is not a fact. It's a belief. Right? Because if it was a fact, I had to have wanted it. That could not, it'd be impossible for me to not have a. So it's like, if it's not a fact, then how am I going to operate in the world? Do I want to keep that belief or do I want to change it? Does it serve me or does it stifle me? And so once you understand that, the relationship with emotions start to change. You realize it's not even the relationship. Your emotions are your best friend as a sovereign man. As a sovereign man, your primary modus operandi is, I want to be able to go after what is important to me or move in a way that gets me towards the things that I value, moves me towards my vision.
Right.
But a lot of times what stops men from being disciplined, stops them, like if I have a porn problem, if I have an overeating problem, if I have, a weed problem, I have a problem because I can't control my behavior. I want to not do this, but I keep doing it. It means you don't have control over you. You're a puppet to something else. You're unsovereign. Right. And so it's like, well, wouldn't sovereignty look like me suppressing the desire to want weed? No. Sovereignty would look like when the moment comes to desire to smoke, to eat, to have sex, to whatever the vice is, it looks like being present, no movement, a gap time between the time where you need to feel the urge to do the vice and when you actually do it. If you can have enough self-governance in that moment, you sit there and you observe the emotion coming up. But you don't I don't want to feel that, because the thing you don't want to feel is what makes you go drown yourself in liquor, weed, sex, porn, video games. It's the thing you don't want to feel that actually makes you a puppet. So you're actually running from the negative emotion, which is what's causing you to be a puppet. Right. But to be sovereign would mean to go, I'm going to allow whatever it is to come up and feel it, even if I'm afraid. When you're unsovereign, you allow the fear of the emotion to dictate your actions. So you're in a constant state of running from the thing you don't want to feel, the thing you don't want to know. But emotions are communicative. They teach you about your belief. Remember, I feel something based on what I perceive. So if I'm going to approach a woman and I feel anxious, it's because I have a belief that this is going to potentially lead to something negative for me.
Right.
So I may believe that, hey, if I talk to this woman and she rejects me, I'm going to feel pain. So then the question is, great, you have an emotion. Don't run from it. Right there. Okay. You feel pain. You feel embarrassment. Stay with me. Remain sovereign. Being still is probably the greatest action of sovereignty. One of the greatest signs of sovereignty is the ability to stay in one position. Right. So if you can just be still. Okay, I'm feeling, what are you feeling? Shame, embarrassment, my ego is hurt, pride, da-da-da. Okay, stay with me. Why? Because, she just rejected me. Okay. Why is that bad? Or you could say, is that good or bad? That's bad. Why? Because I wanted her, she didn't want me. Okay, why is that bad? Because, that means that I'm unworthy and I won't be able to have the kind of women I want in life. Is that true? Is it possible that something else could be true? And you start to drill. Your emotions or a rabbit hole to the perceptual filters you have that would have you go over to that woman as expecting to be rejected to begin with. Right. So your belief created your rejection because you're going over there expecting. Right. Rejection.
You already rejected yourself.
Right, and she has to follow your lead. We talked about it in the last video. So it's not that it doesn't mean that if a guy believes he's the shit that every woman is going to want him, he just needs to be aligned with the truth. The truth is something more like there's some women who are going to want me, there's some women who aren't. I don't know who that's going to be unless I take action. So if I don't know who that's going to be unless I take action, then we go back down the chain of reaction. Like, if I'm not taking action, it's because I'm thinking something, it's because I'm feeling something, it's because I believe something. So let me change the belief and it will collapse the entire thing.
Yeah.
And that's where you truly get to know thyself. If the beliefs are false, then they're actually distorting the truth. And it's for the first time, once you align with truth, remove the belief, let's just see what happens. And a lot of times when guys go outside of that comfort zone, a lot of their comfort zones are actually just walls of belief. They're not actual reality. So comfort zone may look like, I don't have any friends. And so we go, okay, well, why don't you have any friends? Because no one likes me. Boom, that's a belief.
Yep.
So you stay in the house and your comfort zone is, I don't talk to people because people don't like me. So your belief is the actual cage. You think you're unlikable, so you never make any effort to get out the house. Oh, another thing. Oh, there's no one out there worth meeting. I'm too different. Boom, another belief. So you make no effort to go outside that paradigm or comfort zone. So you're stuck in it, but you're really just a puppet to that belief. That one lens of perception that you think is reality about life. And so as a sovereign man, the more of your beliefs you can, or you could say your false assumptions you can remove and start aligning with, like you could say, one core belief of, it's possible. It's possible. Let's see what happens. That's the core belief. Or it's not really a belief, it's just the truth. Right? It's possible. It's not impossible. I don't know if it's impossible because I've never done everything that could be done. So I don't know. So the truth is you don't know. Not, nobody likes me. That's your assumption. There's no one out there that's like me. That's your assumption. I'll never change. That's your assumption. What's the truth? I don't know. That's the truth. I don't know. And I'm going to say these things because I don't want to put in the effort required to find out if it's true or not. That's going to require discomfort. That might require embarrassment. That will require effort, pain. It's like, yeah, I'd rather just assume this is the truth about the world instead of admitting the actual truth, which is I don't know.
Yeah.
And so when you're sovereign, you actually have the best relationship with your emotions possible. A sovereign man is the authentic man. It is the man that allows the emotion to surface so he can get the gems about who he is from the feelings he has. And so how I operate is that I am very in tune with my emotion because I know they're always signaling perceptions I have about the world that might not be true. So if I'm going, let's say I'm looking to give a speech, and I notice my emotions are my best friend. Know thyself. If I have to give a speech or I have to go speak with somebody and I'm like, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling nervous, I'm feeling whatever, maybe feeling excitement. That's communicating to me the belief, the lens through which I'm looking at reality. And so if I'm anxious, that's an opportunity. If I suppress the anxiety, if I suppress my anxiety, I'm an imposter. If I suppress the anxiety, I'm not really there. If I let it come up, and again, one of the most sovereign things you can do is remain still. If I let it come up and I go, I'm anxious. Anxiety is the anticipation of a negative outcome in the future. What am I expecting to happen that I don't want to happen? And then boom. And with the right question you start. You're like, I'm afraid that I'll say the wrong thing and I'll get judged. And in other people's judgment is where I find my identity. Right? And it's like, so I need other people to approve of me in order for me to approve of myself. And so I always do, or I always try to show up in a way where people will say that you're a good guy. You're a nice guy. You're a good man. I always do whatever I think will get pats on the back. Right? And if I can get the pats on the back, then I can like me. But what if I don't get any pats on the back? I'm cooked. Right? And so we move through the world being the puppet to our beliefs, the puppet to our circle. But the gateway to freedom is sovereignty, and sovereignty looks like awareness of your emotions and your thoughts.
Right.
Rather than it's, hey, let's get as far from this as possible. It's bring the feminine towards you, bring the emotion towards you, but don't submit to it. Make love to the emotion. No, I'm kidding. But
No, you're not.
but but no, be with okay. My thoughts, and the hardest part is not to submit. And so many men actually had a false, were sold a false, or I would say, I wouldn't say sold in like a malicious way, but they were informed of a false understanding of sovereignty, where sovereignty is, I'm all with the smoke. Allow emotions to come up so that you can learn what underlying beliefs you have that are causing the pain. Because then all you're doing anyway is running from the negative emotion. And now you're doing all the things that you're like, man, this is ruining my life. Why do I feel like I'm so out of control? And so we try to get control by keep on running. But then that's a fearful man. That's not a sovereign man. Right? You're suppressing your emotion through your distraction. And so I'm feeling bad, so I'm going to suppress it through this game. I'm going to suppress it through this drug. I'm going to suppress it. And so my distractions become my suppressions. But if I was able to stop my distraction, then I couldn't suppress it anymore, and I'd have to muster up some bravery.
You'd have to face.
Yeah. And so one of the bravest things a man can do is face himself. And yourself is the feelings within you, right? That's the communication vehicle. The feelings and thoughts. And you're like, let me observe and assess them and let them come up. Who am I? And one of the best methods to know thyself is to be still. Allow whatever feelings to come up, the negative ones. Get a pen and start with, I'm feeling, and just let it flow. No filter. And that's your private whatever. Because bringing things to awareness is the cure to darkness. That's why they say the truth will set you free, quite literally. We won't go into that in this. But if somebody's watching, experiment with that. And I guarantee you, things that you thought bothered you so deeply, right? Feeling like, oh, the sovereign man is the suppressed man, is the emotionally disconnected man. No, it's the man that doesn't fear his emotions. It doesn't mean that you're overly crying and all that. If that serves you, then so be it. It just means that you can be cool, calm, and collected in terms of your expression because you have governance within. And it could be stirring within, and you're like, I'm man enough to be with this. Why is that necessary as a man? Because if the emotions are submitting you and you're not submitting them, if you're not governing them, you can't really submit them. But from a way of saying it, if the emotions are governing you and you're not governing them, meaning you're not acting from a place of conscious will or awareness separate from the, you could say, the potential storm below, then those are going to come out and dictate your actions. And if the emotions are negative, the behaviors will likely be negative. Mm-hmm. And if the behaviors are negative, your environment will become negative. Mm-hmm. So if you're a leader of a family, hey, right, mm-hmm. you'll destroy yourself and destroy your loved ones. Mm-hmm. Because you lack sovereignty, because you're unwilling to go face your demons. So it's a cowardly venture to flee from oneself. Mm-hmm. But what you learn is, once you are willing to face the woman within, which is the emotional state, right? The feminine, the emotional is associated with the feminine. So a lot of fairly tough guys are actually afraid of their inner woman, the inner feminine. That's the one woman they don't want to face. And it's like, okay, let me allow whatever feelings to come up. Right. And she's chaotic, she's crazy, there's traumas from God knows when. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I'm not running anymore. Now, this may take place in solitude, which would be ideal. As I mentioned, having a journal, and you just allow that. But it's realizing that you're no longer going to be your emotional, you're no longer going to be your emotions puppet. You're no longer going to run. You're going to have the courage to go, for the sake of my loved one, for the sake of myself, for the sake of my community, whatever matters to you. Mm-hmm. I'm no longer going to be a bitch. Right. You're good. And it's that proper relationship with the emotional state that allows a man to be calm. People think people always say you're very calm. People think being calm means it's emotionless. Yeah. No, it means that I govern them. So I dictate the expression of it, but I don't dictate whether they exist. I don't dictate their reactions, but I can dictate their expression. I can dictate my action. I can dictate the move I make. Mm-hmm. Because I'm in tune with the storm within. And so if it emerges, I'm like, okay, you're here to teach me something. Okay, what am I here to learn? Mm-hmm. I'm in this environment. It's chaotic within right now. Okay, let's talk. What's going on? Rather than going, oh, I'm going to try to suppress it. And just like how bombs explode, the more condensed it gets, the bigger the explosion, because it must explode. Right? And sometimes that explosion looks like ruining our lives. Right? Ruining our families. And we think that, especially amongst us as men, that giving into our anger in particular is more manly than giving in to, let's say, sadness or fear or the other negative emotions. We think giving into anger is more righteous than the other ones. But if you're a puppet to your anger, it's no different than a guy who's a puppet to his fear. You're a puppet. A puppet doesn't. You're a puppet whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not. That's what it is, right? For us, anger feels more righteous because it makes it feel as if we can defeat the thing that's trying to bully us, right? So if I get angry, if I get rageful, I get, hey, you're not going to disrespect me, you're going to... And we explode in that way. It feels more powerful because it's like, well, at least they're not going to do it again. Mm-hmm. Right? But you're still a puppet. Mm-hmm. And it's very likely in those moments we say things we don't mean, we do things we regret. And if we're doing things that are making our life worse, whenever we get a feeling and we can't do anything to stop it, that's weakness. It's not strength. So if you can choose, okay, I'm going to act on this anger right now. This is a situation where bro crossed the line. I'm going to choose to act on it. But true sovereignty is the choice to act on my anger, not being my anger's bitch. Mm-hmm. So it's not about suppression, it's about selection. So the more sovereign we get, the more emotionally aligned we get. But your emotions no longer have you by the string. Right? It's within your container as the man. And we have a capacity to do that in a way that a woman does not. Right? If it's a ratio, right? If it's like think of it like a solar system, the feminine is ever changing. It's a constant change. Represents the feminine forces within the universe. I was going to use an atomic example, but many people might not know that one. So let's just use the solar system. The feminine would represent something like it's the light in the center, the sun aspect is a smaller sun, but a fuller system. The masculine would represent a bigger sun, but a smaller system, meaning the alignment, the attunement with the constant changing aspects within a feminine being. It's more rich, it's fuller, it's more present. There's more of it, more to work with, right? You guys can feel more strongly on both the positive and the negative. Right. The masculine has a greater attunement and detachment at the same time because he has a smaller orbiting world or less planets orbiting, less, and I'm trying to use words that are common knowledge, but he has less stuff around his orbit internally. And so that's why when a man lacks emotional control, it's frowned upon. And innately we know this. Innately a woman expects a man to have more emotional control than her. Mm-hmm. And emotional control is even a false term because you can't control emotions. You can only govern them and be with them. Mm-hmm. It's constant change. You can't control something changing. As we said before, it's like trying to say, I'm going to grab this piece of water. Right, you can contain it, but you can't control it. You can't. It's gonna bend you like this, water. No. Right, same with thoughts. It's like saying I'm gonna bend the air. We can contain it. Right. And allow it to be, allow it to flow, allow it to be dynamic within the containment. Mm-hmm. That way we can still take the actions we need to take without being a puppet. Mm-hmm. That's how the masculine or the male is designed to operate, right? Because a lot of emotional fluctuations come from the environment. And if as a male, we react to the environment or we're too easily reactionary to the environment, then let's say in nature, if something occurs and I'm too emotionally attuned and I don't have enough governance on it, I'm always going to act on the emotion. And so if I hear something in the woods and my fear kicks in, the fear will take over and I'll act on it and I'll flee. But if I'm allowed to feel but still conscious enough to know, regardless of my feelings, I'm going to courageously face or do whatever is required to protect those who are important, then in spite of my fear, then I still have enough conscious resources to do what needs to be done. Right? And that difference is where the power lies. And so even when a man is with a woman, in some sense, he becomes her emotional container, right? So similarly to how he learns to contain and allow the flow of, but still govern the feminine within himself, when he's in a relationship with a woman, he becomes the container for her feminine. But it's critical that he's in tune with the center within himself, and he's governing the feminine within himself. Otherwise, the environment will make a puppet out of him. Right. And so the feminine is more environmentally influenced. Right. It's more, the feminine pays more attention to the context. Context has a big role in how I feel, which is why, and the context is the masculine force. Right. As we talked about, it's like thinking of a glass. The shape of the glass would be the masculine context or structure, and the shape and ever-flowingness of the water within would be the feminine. But the water changes based upon the shape of the thing, the container.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why women will feel differently in different men's presence. Right. It's like, I don't know why you make me feel this way. That particular container and the flow of her emotions are in alignment. Right. That's a good match for where that woman happens to be at that time and her needs, and where that man happens to be at that time and his needs. Right. But the feminine is contextual, it's ever changing, while the masculine is an ever changing constant. Right. So it's the rotating planet on its axis. It's always in motion, but it's always in motion in the same position. Whereas the feminine is in motion in every direction. There's a guru I was listening to, and he made I think his name was maybe Sadio, something like that. And it's not Sadhguru. It's an Indian guy, but not Sadhguru. But he said that, the dance within the universe is based upon the relationship between the masculine and the feminine, right? The feminine represents constant change, or what they tend to refer to as chaos. Right? Chaos just means unpredictable. The masculine refers to changing constant, something continually rotating on its axis. And so if we take that and we take, let's say you're just moving around randomly, and just random movement, people will look at you like, oh, this guy crazy, right? His movements make no sense. However, when you add something to that chaotic movement, it becomes dance. When you add a pivot, meaning when someone is dancing, there's a pattern to their movement within the chaos. So they're kind of moving, but there's a certain centeredness to the movement. And let's say it's two people dancing, the center is, especially in a lot of dances, the male is the grounding principle, and the female is the one that's kind of randomly doing, and it's a more flowy energy. But it's critical for that man to be the ever-changing, or the ever-changing constant, right? And the feminine to be the constant change. And then that's how dance happens. But if this gets destabilized, then it's chaos. And without this, there's no progress, no evolution. So these two dancing together is the dance of all relationships within the universe. And so that, on a microcosmic level, is the relationship with the man and his emotions. And so it's understanding that the emotions within is teaching you. It's the feminine within dancing, within the masculine awareness. so that a man can evolve into more than what he's ever been. And he can, at the same time, go deeper into who he's always been. Because now he gets to find out what his beliefs are. What do I think is true? What do I truly desire? All those are emotional communications. Right. It's really important, and this is something I often forget. But everything we do is because we want a feeling at the end of it. So in some sense, everything is happy wife, happy life. But it's the internal wife. Right. It's the emotion we all want at the end of it.
Right.
But it's always headed by the husband. The awareness, the thought, the will that goes, okay, feel this desire for this. Now let's take the action. So that unity gives birth to all the creations in our lives. But the starting point is sovereignty. Otherwise, we'll destroy ourselves with the negative emotions within ourselves that we can't control. And then we'll destroy the people we love the most. But yeah, that's all I got on the sovereign man. Yeah, it's not the emotionless man. It's actually a man that's deeply, deeply in tune with it.